yeah, we'll just see what's going on. So I need this open. I need this open. Hello, everybody. We'll edit the first bit out. So we're going to do some orienteering theoretical technique kind of discussion based on looking at my orienteering on Mt Korong on Wednesday. So what we're going to use is I got a GPS watch. I've put the GPS track into a program called QuickRoute along with the map file, and it gives you, once you move it around, it gives you this, which shows your route over the map with all the controls on. So you can see getting around the course. It's got a pace graph up at the top. So dark green is currently set at 4 minutes a kilometre. So all of the dark green bits, I'm there at that speed or I'm faster. And red is set at 7 minutes a kilometre or slower. So you can see on the legs there are various different times. So slow in some sections and then quick in others. For example, on the hill up towards 11, slow. On the hill up towards 9, I'm slower. So that can give you a basic view of the analysis. And it also, if you flick over to YouTube, now that won't show up on that, will it? Will that show up on the YouTube channel?
Fine.
Yeah. So if I go play, but if people are watching on YouTube, because I'm sharing my screen, do I need to change what I'm sharing?
Yeah, we'll just unshare this.
Unshare the screen, and would then people watch? Would it then come up on YouTube?
Just go play.
I'm just thinking if people are watching on YouTube, right?
Yeah, it started for us. You're in control of it.
If you're on the Hangouts,
Can't see them.
yeah, you need to go on select the YouTube. So if you're on Google Hangouts, select the YouTube button on the left, and you'll see me running through the forest. What I'm concerned about is that this won't be showing. This is the orienteering discussion.
You stop.
I don't think this will be showing because it's just showing the screen. It's just, yeah. Oh, okay. Do you think it's?
Stop sharing the screen there, haven't you?
Yep. I'm wondering if this is just showing the screen share.
We're just watching.
Yeah. So what I'm concerned about is people watching on YouTube might be seeing my. Won't be seeing the screen. Right. If you could, do you want to keep that up, Craig, and we'll just see whether it changes. Right. So I'm going to pause the YouTube. So this is a program called Route Gadget Map Video, and what it does is it combines my head cam that I wore for the race, and it combines it with the maps and the QuickRoute data. So you can see me running through the terrain.
Have you got the link to that video?
Yeah. Put it on Facebook too. Okay. Yeah, it combines the head cam, and you can do some analysis on what I've looked at, and just thinking about what how my orienteering is going. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be flicking between the YouTube panel on Google Hangouts and my screen. Yeah.
I'm just trying to.
Could you share?
Can I share my screen again? Yes, I can. Share it onto Korong training. Right, so you should be able to flick between the screen share onto my quick route, back and forth with the YouTube button. Is that working for you, Peter?
Yeah, that works fine.
Okay. Good. Right. So the majority, the key with orienteering is not to lose time, because you always lose significantly more time than you can gain in fitness. So you want to be as stable as possible with your orienteering technique. And always, as far as you can, try and run with certainty. Because if you're running knowing exactly where you are and where you're going, then you'll run faster than if you're worrying about the next thing you're trying to see. What we're looking for in the terrain are lines, because following lines is far easier than simply joining points together or simply running with no idea. So where everyone begins with orienteering is on paths. They're obviously very easy lines in the terrain to follow. And you graduate from paths onto following different line features like fences and ditches. And you can graduate further from that into following gullies and spurs and lines of rock and things. So what we're looking at here is trying to use those lines, and the secret is when you're joining one line to another. So if we look at number 1,
We've lost your screen share.
lost my screen share.
It's now just blank. Have you turned off your screen share?
Are we back on?
Yeah, now back on. Fine.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
start again.
Yeah. So we're looking at number 1 as a control. At the start point, it's important to take your time to get yourself into the map and give yourself that confidence that the first control has gone well. So on the way to the first control, you can see that we've almost got the first point of contact out of the control would be those 2 boulders that are just under the line. They're really useful because they get you going straight away in the right direction for the first control. So this is a key thing we're going to be looking for, is small features close to the control that help point you out in the right direction. Because once you've started going in the right direction, it gives your brain a sense of perspective in what way the control is. So if you can take that as those first steps, your body is a lot better at running in a straight line from then on. So if you're running directly where you want to be to start with early on, then that will help you a lot in the long run. So we've got that as our the first features. And you see we've got this running over this gentle spur, and we've got this kind of tier of rocks, these small little black dots. I'm pointing with my fingers here. These small black dots here, let me just go onto this. There we go. So this area here, these black dots and this green, and that acts as a line. And you know that once you get on that line, that the control is down and to the left of that line, if you imagine you're coming on the left-hand side of it. So now if we flick to YouTube, I'll talk through this first control. So here we go. So here we go, off running. Did you see those boulders on the left. See me looking around, looking for those boulders. Looking for those boulders on the right now, and that you're keeping going on that right line. See some map reading going on when I look down, looking out, and you can see this kind of green and rocky area developing on the right hand side. So I know that I'm on the next line, and the control is coming up going to be on my left hand side fractionally. Through the green, there we go, straight onto the boulders. Boom. Oh, there we go. So that was control 1. Did that work for everyone? So we go back onto quick route. We've got a shorter leg here. What you can see is the first point of contact. You've got this big cliff, crag, pointing us out. We've then got this obstacle here in the middle of the leg, big rock features. You see it looks green there, there's these rock triangles. So to me, when I'm looking at that looks slow and potentially challenging to get through. There's this sort of light green patch to the left of the line now that we can see. That also looks slow. So I'm thinking at the start to go to the right of those features. So you see the cliff to start with, left of the cliff, up between the cliff and this big rock, and then you turn yourself at 90 degrees, and you read your way into the middle of these rocks here. We can see the cliff above. Now I know on my GPS it looks like I've not gone to the right control site, but honestly I did. It was perfect. So if we flick back onto YouTube, we'll just take it back a touch. So we'll see me come into the control. I'll talk it through. So into the control, here we go. Stop, look at the map, head up, looking for those features. So there's the cliff, the big cliff on the right. Past the rock, coming up this gully. There's the big set of rock features on the left. Come up to the top of the gully. Lots of map reading to check what I'm going to do. Come round the rocks. Head up again, looking for the rocks on the map. Straight in. Coming in here, down on those cliffs. I'm looking for the last boulder. There we go. Awesome. Right, so back onto quick route. Now I know that some people had problems with this third control. But once again, all we've got to do is join these lines up again. So we know that we're coming out. Basically, there aren't many, I would say there aren't many particularly good features coming out of control 2 on the way to control 3. But what we can use is we can use these contour lines, and we know that we're basically going to try and keep a similar height or drop a little bit. So that gives us our first sense of perspective. We've then got these bigger green areas, which I think from running the first 2 controls I'd worked out that I thought those would be quite obvious to follow. And then you've got these sort of rocky green specks as well. So they're all sort of pushing us in the right direction, because you can see you come out at the right height, you've got a green thing here, you've got this one here and this one here, and they're pointing us directly at the control. So back onto YouTube. So off we go, checking around, looking at lots of different features. You saw me look behind as well, just to get as clear an image that I was certain of where I was as possible. Push through the first thing, and we've gone up slightly, and now another check. Just there's no worries stopping if it helps you save time in the long run. Here we go, staying at roughly the same height. Going along.
Ralph, is the video buffering for you, or is that just me?
Probably just you, unfortunately. Anyway, pushing down. And here we go. There's the control. Oh. Yeah, hopefully you guys are being able to see the video. Oh. Hold on. Okay, for those people who are joining in, let me explain what's going on. We're using a program called QuickRoute, which
It doesn't matter anymore, they've left.
They've left. Oh.
Yeah, they were here. They were here for like when you were getting into number one, and
okay.
I think they were struggling a little bit.
Okay. Oh well. We'll keep going with this.
Oh, they're back. Perhaps we could just do like a few specific legs. Like,
yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I'll explain what's going on. If you're watching in Google Hangouts, which I believe you are, on the left-hand side there are some buttons. The YouTube button will take you to a headcam video of me running on Mt Korong. So if you click that, you'll see it's paused at the moment. And that's got two maps, a map on each side with a dot going along showing my position. But the maps aren't particularly good quality on the YouTube. So if you click on the share screen button, which is the green one with the arrow on, you'll see my screen. Oh, I just unclick the YouTube button. Sorry. So share my screen.
We just have to click in your face in the bottom right hand corner.
Okay, click. Those of you know what's going on. You click on my face, and it will come up with a program called QuickRoute, which overlays a GPS track onto the map, and gives you this pace graph. So green is when I'm moving faster, and red is when I'm moving slower. So I think we'll do leg 13 to 14 as a leg, because it illustrates quite well the points that we're trying to make, which are picking up features very, very close to the control that you're leaving to get you going in the right direction you want to. So on control 13, you can see that there's this, if you're watching on QuickRoute, you can see that there's this cliff little U feature just on the edge of the circle. And that points you in the right direction. And those features are important because they give you a sense of perspective. And when your brain has got perspective, it will help all of the features of the map fit together, and you'll do better orienteering. And what we're looking for in the terrain are lines. And by line features, I don't just mean paths and creeks and fences. I mean contours as well as rock features. So you can see on this leg 13 to 14, we've got this big tier of rocks here, and that effectively is a line. You can follow that easily in the terrain if you keep that on one side of you. So I opted to keep it on my right, and I can just follow that tier round. You then see another line feature. We've got this tier of rocks here, and this open, and they're again driving us towards the control. We keep that tier on our left. Coming through, further on. You can't always find lines, so you've got to flick between the lines, and that's the secret to good orienteering, is to not get uncertain when you're in these gaps. So you see the line ending, some smaller features, and maybe the start of a line beginning with these bits of green and grey on the right, going into the bottom of this open. So if everyone goes on to YouTube, I'm going to have to find out when I was at control.
Use your quick route splits to see when you're at control 13.
That's very intelligent, Peter. Where are we at? 15.5. Come on. Oh, a bit further on. Yeah, just bear with it while it loads and everything. Okay, this will do. So here we are, going from control 12 down into control 13. And I'll talk you through the whole process of the leg. So, is everyone all right? Okay. Yeah. Hopefully it's all working for you. So we're on YouTube. Coming into control 13, big open space. Using that as a line feature, expecting it, the feature we want to be on our left. So you can see on the right hand side, there's that cliff that I was talking about earlier, the U-shaped cliff. And we're just having a little think about exactly where the brown knoll is, but here we go. So punch the control, have a look around, check that it's the right one, and a bit of a think in the map. So that cliff that we saw on the way in, going to spot that, there it is, run the right hand side of that, and that's giving us our first direction thing down. So already I've had a look at the control and decided that it's that to the left of that first tier and to the right of that second tier. So I need to get to the first tier. That's important. So that first feature is vital for getting me there. And I know that I've got to go downhill and down the gully. So you'll start to see so you can see the tier of rock appearing on my right. You see that little head, there's a little head movement there. Just checking that it's there. So all I have to do is keep that on my right and follow it around. And I can take the time to read for the next feature. So I know that I've decided that I want to run above the next tier of rock and in that open. So now I need to climb, read the map, come through here. So now we're leaving one line and we're going to the other, and these are where problems are when you're uncertain. So you see there's a little bit more jerky head movement from me to look out for as many features as possible, so that if I get confused, that I've already got that information in my mind, but we've done okay, got through. So now we're running in the open, and see that little head movement left, just to check that that tier of rock is there, because that gives us multiple colors. Multiple colors make you certain. So we're in the yellow, and if we're in the yellow next to the black, then we've got that reinforcement that we're in the right place. So now you remember there's that slightly tricky section. So there's lots more looking around to check that I'm exactly on the right level coming in. Looking for those bolder rock detail things on the right. Realizing that I've got to keep a very similar height to get to the next control. Bit more map reading. See, slowing down and a lot of head movement there. Probably because I didn't look at the map enough for that period of time, made me uncertain. So I had to slow down, a lot more head movement. So what I've done is I've left my line feature and I haven't found the next line that I'm on, and I haven't given myself, so there's no easy orienteering. I've got to go between points. But then we're okay. We find those big rocks, and you know that you give yourself the perspective there that you're just pushing onwards into the green, and on the left of the green will be a rock. That'll be my control. There we go. So that was control 14. We go back to quick route. So what you'd see is, do you remember I came through the open? If you go back on quick route, came through the open, green showing good speed, and then there's these little bits here, little bits of yellow and red, back to green and red and yellow, and that's the uncertainty coming in, because I've left one line here, the yellow, and I haven't been clear enough as to what the next line is going to be. You could hear when I spoke about it, I was like, well, maybe there's that green and stuff, and you can use maybe these rocks to help push you onwards. But I don't think I was clear enough in my mind about what I was going to use. I was just going basically straight at it, expecting to either be picked up by this rock detail. So if I'd been cleverer about it, what would I have used? I think I'd have used the relationship between these rocks here and these rocks. And you can see this band of green and rock in it, that points you again at the control. So I'd go off this line, could see that from this line onto that, onto this feature, and then be much more certain. Then I'd probably move this patch of yellow uncertainty here, would be moved up to around here when I'm starting to see to move onto these as a feature. So that would be my analysis for that leg, is that slowdown there was caused by not being on a line, basically. What other interesting legs have we got? Peter, have you got any suggestions?
Let's do number 12.
Number 12.
Or
So do you want me to go and work?
which one did you make your mistake on? Was it 12
I made
or 11?
11.
Let's do 11.
Let's do 11. All right. 11:39. Oh, perfect. So if everyone, what should we do? We'll we'll start on quick route. So here we are, 10 to 11. A climbing leg. You can see we're coming up onto the top of the hill here from 11. Looking for a boulder amongst other boulders, so not a particularly easy control potentially. It's not going to stand out a lot, but it has got some helpful features near it. It's got these cliffs, sorry, up above the control. They should be quite obvious. So you could tell by using the relationship that they have, the distance between them and their angles, to point you at the control if you could see them from a long way away. You've got the creek on the left, so between them you're not going to fall very much out. You're not going to fall offline dramatically on this control, because you know that the second you cross the creek, something's going wrong. You know that if you're crossing big rock features, that something's going wrong. So I guess what I decided to do was use these cliffs here to help point me in the control, and just judge the distance away from them to be about the sort of half circle width, and to sort of stay a similar distance away on the creek side. And it all went a little bit wrong. Yeah, question.
So how were you confident that you see the crag with the ticks on it?
Yep.
And then the crag, and to the left of that,
Yep.
how are you confident that you could see that line and then the ones which just come into the circle?
Yeah.
Because as I ran that leg, I was making the things above that fit where those crags were. So I was kind of thinking that the boulders were the tier above, and then that boulder cluster was the rocks above the controls.
You're right. Yeah. I think that's what actually caused my mistake, is though the features that I'd chosen to use were not as obvious as I expected them to be, and the problem was I didn't recognize that. Or I sort of recognized it, but I decided not to do anything about it. What I should have done is, running along, I've gone, those features are harder to use. I'm not going to be able to use them. What's my backup plan? And that would maybe have based it on, say, the creek and the small gully that comes up on the edge of the control here, and use those features instead of these features. But what I did was, because I couldn't use them, I assumed that there was no plan B, if that makes sense. So I just pressed on uncertain into the control circle. And this is why, from quite a long way out, I guess, I know it's uphill, but there's quite a lot of uncertainty there. And we'll see it in the video, in that I came through this rock area here, so with very little idea of what I was doing.
On this one, had you identified those cliffs originally and then you were running the leg? And perhaps it would be better to run at it as you're coming out of a left 10, go, those cliffs don't look so good. Oh look, the creek on my left is very obvious. It was very obvious crossing it on 10, so I'm now going to follow it. So like using the terrain rather than looking at the map first. Is that what I mean?
Yes. Because the map is not a perfect representation of the terrain. It's one person's perspective. So there are cliffs there, and I'd assume that because this is a reasonably open area and those are on a hill, that they're going to be quite big. You should use the features that are obvious, I guess. So again, I think I've made quite a lot of assumptions on the course. So we're thinking about let's go back to to 14, that I've assumed that that tier is going to be obvious. And I've assumed that this speckled open tier is going to be obvious, rather than going in the right direction and having things come at me. I guess it's two different. It's either the what's called map to ground or ground to map styles of orienteering, and I guess I like to plan a little bit. Can see the advantage would be if you turned out a 10 and went, what am I going to use to get me to 11? And you looked up, you'd then instantly realize that the cliffs weren't visible and you'd use the creek. But the way I've done my orienteering is to kind of select some features that I'm going to try and use and go for them. And maybe that works in quite a lot of situations, but here's an example where it hasn't worked. But I think it probably does have some advantages. I guess it has.
Right in the fact that when you said you had to identify that it was risky and then change your plan, and I think you were very right when you said you didn't feel like you had a plan B. You just kind of, because that's exactly what I felt like. I was just like,
yeah.
So that. Yeah.
I think, it's learning when that, probably what I would need to do is I'd need to teach myself that when those features aren't available that I've decided, is to go into a backup plan. And that backup plan could be, I'm going to look for other features, or it could be, say, I want to just run on compass for a bit, and things will work out. So maybe those cliffs won't be obvious from where I started looking for them, but maybe in, say, 40 meters time, they might become obvious. So if I could run 40 meters accurately on my compass whenever I felt uncertain about features, then that could be really good for my orienteering. So maybe on 14 again, where I slowed down, maybe that should have been a kind of, oh, there aren't very many obvious lines here to follow, sort of hit panic button, default to compass basically, until I get back on a line feature. Because as you see, we haven't mentioned compass at all as a technique on any of these things. Basically, I orientated my map to north of the start triangle, and ever since then, we've been using lines and the feature relationships to guide us in. There've been no compass bearings going on. So maybe I'm not relying on my compass enough in my technique, and it could save me from errors like this one at 11. Shall we watch me make a mistake at 11? Should we go on, Peter?
Yeah, I think let's watch you do it and then maybe call it a day after that.
Yeah, so here we go into 10, crossing the creek. Having a bit of a check around just to make sure the feature that it's where I think it should be. There we go, in. So stop, slowly walking out. Did you see that look up to the right up for those crags? Map reading. Map reading. So I think that is the panic going on, that those crags aren't that obvious. And we see this very, very long section with no map reading. We're about 11, 18, so we've already gone 10, 12 seconds, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So 24, 25 seconds with no map reading. So it's no wonder that I'm not really very sure where I am. Come through some rocks. I'm uncertain as to whether those are the rocks that are on the map or they're not on the map, exactly where I am. But then things start to become more obvious here. I can start to see those cliffs appearing and go slower. There it is. So I finally notice that that one is the ones above 11, and therefore those are the boulders. There we go. So yeah, it was all over pretty quickly. Painless mistake. So I guess what you saw then is a really long period of no map reading before a mistake. So lesson would be more map reading, or that you can't running. What did we go? 25 seconds? 25 seconds with no map reading. It's a very risky thing to do. What was I doing in those 25 seconds? I cannot remember exactly. I know Peter was in front of me, so maybe I was chasing him. My competitive vibes were going a little bit. But it's an awful big amount of time not to do anything. But I did solve the mistake quite quickly, which is good, in that the features that I was looking for, they suddenly appeared, basically, once I got close enough to them. And I was able to work it out. So you see, where I turned the corner is where I started map reading again. Just here.
If you look at your split to number 11, then 24 seconds is almost a third of that split.
Yep. Yeah. So it is a bit. It's definitely a big mistake. I guess what you can show is that there was no map reading from about where that green area is in the middle of the line, and I was able to run straight on that next section. So I was able to keep going in the same direction, which was kind of on the right way to the control. So that's good. So that was not running on compass, that's purely running on, I've started running in that direction. I'll just keep going in that way. And then, yeah, maybe control leaving time. See, 16 seconds is one of the fastest. On quick route on the right, you've got the difference between your control approaching time and leaving time. So it's 16 seconds leaving number 10, which is one of the fastest ones. So maybe I haven't taken as much time and as much care as I took at the other controls to really work out what I was doing, and that's why I sort of rushed this 11. I didn't pick maybe I didn't pick sensible features, I didn't pick enough features to get me there. Yeah. Yeah. Have you got any more questions or thoughts, Peter, about that?
No, I think that was really good. I certainly got a lot out of that. Just hopefully we can make it a little bit more, get the videos working a bit better and things.
Yeah.
I thought that was really helpful. Like just doing 3 legs that went like one to introduce it, one that went really well, and one that didn't go so well.
Yeah.
I thought that was good. That time in and out of the control, is that the time from
In circle.
outside the circle, in the circle to the control, and then control to the outside of the circle.
Yeah, so you can set, so this is the circle radius up here, if you're still looking at quick route, and that's set to 45. Which I assume is 45 meters.
Yep. That's the red circles.
Sounds sensible.
That'd be the red
Yeah,
circles.
so the red circles on there.
Yeah.
That are inside the purple circles. You can see some of them taking a long time to get into and get out of. So we got 35
Number 9, for
and
instance.
number 11, very, very slow, close in.
Number 9's very slow.
Yeah, number 9, 125. If anyone wants to see that, that's because stood in the circle, debating which boulder it was going to be. So I think it's never, when you're at the control is when you know, it's one of the very few times that you know 100% that you are in the correct place. So there's no point trying to leave that place as soon as possible. You should stay there until you know exactly what you're doing. And if you're taking one thing away, I think it's taking away the features, the small features that lead you out of the control. So we had, on the start point, we had the 2 boulders. On number 1, we had the cliff to the right. On number 2, we had the same height. Number 3 to 4, we had the green area on the left of the line. 4 to 5 is the direction the gully points. 5 to 6 is these crag and stream things on the left. 6 to 7, what did I use there? It will be the sort of going almost straight through the boulder. So maybe that's not quite as good as some of the other features. 7 to 8, same height to get yourself out. 8 to 9, going out to this gully here, to the right of the control. 9 to 10, the crag on the cliff, sorry, on the left, the circle, and this big rock here.
Just on that, why did you choose to go through the rock and not around?
So my route choice for 9 to 10 was, I was thinking about going right below the rocks and the hills, and when I got to the point here, it looked a little bit thick there, and I decided that instead of going through the thickness there, that I would go straight across the top of the rocks. It was slower to go over the top, but maybe only by 5 seconds. And I think if I'd been a bit more, I'd say, aggressive, that it would have been a similar time, I think. Maybe I didn't, because I chose actually to run straight over the rocks rather than running in this gap and on this grey. 10 probably didn't have such a good exit feature of maybe using the, so looking at the cliffs. 11 to 12 is using this cliff here that's under the line. So that's probably the furthest away exit feature that I've used. 12 to 13, top of the hill. 13 to 14, the cliff here, edge of the circle. 14, the big green and the second boulder that's there, that's sort of halfway up the slope. 15 to 16, this tier of rocks running on the right hand side of it. 16 to 17, I was actually back in the way I'd come as the exit direction. 17 to 18, same height, same direction I'd been running, 90 degrees to the feature itself. 19, it's quite an interesting leg, but it was...
The cliff on the left just above the line there.
Yeah, that's facing the wrong way though, that cliff there. Maybe I didn't have an exit feature on that. Maybe I got lazy by this point. Can't remember. I don't know. Can't remember what I used. Bad. So there, missing 1, 2, maybe. 19 out the direction relative to the grey that's in the control circle. Add that first boulder. So around this green that was online. So what's that? Missing 2, maybe 3 out of 20. So yeah, I kind of like, when I do our analysis, I kind of like to do would be objective analysis. That you either do something or you don't do it. So you give everything in binary, 1 or 0. So if you're looking for, I want to have a small feature, I want to have a feature very soon after control guiding me out in the right direction. You either have it or you don't have it. There's no kind of, well, I sort of had it. Because I find that if you have days where it's sort of uncomfortable, either wet, if it's, say, a horrible, rainy, cold day, maybe you always have been in a bit more of a miserable mood with your orienteering, you might rank your orienteering lower. And if you've had a wonderful day, then you might rank it higher, but you can't lie with the binary system. You either do the thing or you don't do it. Yeah. Cool. So we'll leave it there. We will do this again at some point. Probably, well, we'll have a chat about things and decide whether this is the best way to do it online, or whether we'll use TOEFL and do some kind of live stream, see if that works, or maybe we'll actually be social and get together and sit in front of a projector and talk about it. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening. Hopefully you've learned something. If you want to, we're going to Mount Beckwith tomorrow. If you check your emails, you'll find out where and when. Plenty of orienteering to do. You can put into practice some of the things we've discussed this evening. And Roslyn Park on Thursday. And then it's Bendigo 2 days at the weekend. So lots of orienteering opportunities to do it, to put into practice things. And just grab me or Peter at any point. And we're very, very happy to talk about orienteering. So yeah, thanks. Peter, do you want to say anything?
No, just thank you very much for doing that. And I'll see you tomorrow at 7 a.m.
Yeah, awesome. 7 or 7:30?
We need to leave at 7:30.
Okay. Yeah.
Alrighty.
Alrighty.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Bye.
Right, bye everyone.